Hello, I'm Ignacio Molina, Senior Analyst for Europe at Elcano Royal Institute in Madrid, and we are here today to make some recommendation to the Austrian Presidency of the Council in the next semester. And along with me is Mario Kölling, who is professor in the National Distance University of Spain, but is also an associate expert of the Elcano Institute on EU budget matters. And precisely we are trying to talking about the negotiation of the multi-annual financial framework, which is a thing really for any rotating presidency is a real challenge, because normally the positions are very politicized and there are great distance between the creditor, the net recipient and the net contributor to the EU budget. In particular, in the case of Austria, there is also a strong position. So this, I think, is key that the Austrian presidency remains as a honest broker, as a neutral as much as possible. But I would like to know your opinion about which is, in your opinion, the main task that the Austrian presidency has in the next semester regarding the proposal of the Commission.
Some weeks ago, the European Commission presented its legislative proposals for the next multi-annual financial framework, and now we Member States discussed with the Commission about the specific effects and the specific details of these proposals. And during the Austrian presidency, the obvious distance positions should be narrowed. I think this is a very important priority for the Austrian presidency, to narrow the gap between the Member States' position and between the European Commission and the Member States. Moreover, I think since the European Parliament has to give its consent at the final agreement, for final Council agreement, the European Parliament should also be involved since the very beginning of the negotiation in the negotiation. So the Austrian presidency should inform the European Parliament, but also invite members of the European Parliament to participate at the informal Council meetings.
So narrowing the gap, and also to involve the European Parliament in negotiations.
Yes.
And it is interesting to take into account that it's obviously impossible that in the next semester the negotiations are going to finish, and probably before the European Parliament elections, we may hope progress, but probably will be in the following semester or even next year when the negotiations will finish. Let me now, when we are talking about the multi-annual financial framework and EU budget in general, we normally look to the revenue side and to the spending side. So let me ask you, what is your opinion? Which is the priorities on the spending side? Which programs should be the priority of the next EU budget for the following 7 years? And at the same time, what to do on the revenue side, how to have more EU money, considering in particular the hole that the Brexit is going to leave in the budget. A net contributor so important as United Kingdom is leaving the European Union the next year, so the European Union has to adopt to this new reality.
The proposals presented by the European Commission have been very pragmatic. So the Commission proposed some cuts in traditional spending headings like cohesion policy or the common agriculture policy, but also the European Commission proposed some new priorities in the EU spending, proposing in this sense new instruments for objectives with a clear European added value, but also for objectives oriented towards common challenges of all member states. So for this sense, the Austrian presidency should consider the proposals as a bottom line, especially regarding the overall spending limits. Since the Austrian government made already quite clear that it is against an increase of the national contributions, the Austrian presidency could focus during the next 6 months in a discussion on new revenues. So the Austrian presidency could use its power as agenda setter in order to in-deep the discussion on these new revenues. There have been quite interesting proposals made by the European Commission, and I think it is worth to consider these proposals, since introducing a new revenue source would also limit, to a certain way, national contributions. But the European Commission also made it quite clear that migration is a very important issue for the next financial framework. So in this sense, also the Austrian government could focus the debate during the next 6 months on this issue.
It's obvious, the migration, external border, also the refugees, but also I think global Europe, so everything connected to security and right. European diplomacy as well. And of course the emphasis on human capital, meaning education, innovation, perhaps job and employment, which links to the traditional spending of the European Union. This is my last comment and my last question on the traditional funds, cohesion and agriculture. The main recipient of those funds are now in GDP per capita are the Central Eastern European countries, Poland, Hungary, Czech Republic, Slovakia, and some of them with some problems regarding now the European values and rule of law. So this is my last comment and my last question on the conditionality that the debate about conditionality that the European Commission has also launched. So to what extent is possible to link the European funds with the respect to the European values, and this debate, which is very, very politicized, in your opinion, how is going to be handled during the negotiations?
I think the proposals of the Commission are still not very clear. So the Austrian Presidency has to focus on an in-depth debate also on what this kind of conditionality means. But of course, the Presidency should also make clear that we are living in a European Union with common values, and the European Union needs some instruments to protect these values. I think this is a very important issue, because it underlines also the evolution of the European budget from a budget just used as side payment during institutional negotiation to a budget oriented towards common challenges and common goals, but in this sense also as a budget which could be used as a policy instrument in order to fulfill objectives agreed at the European level by all EU member states. So far, the European Commission has not very strong instruments in order to push member states, let's say, in one direction. But I think we need these kind of instruments. So the Austrian presidency should firstly clarify what conditionality means, but also lobby, let's say, in favor of these kind of instruments.
I see. Well, this is our recommendation coming from the Elcano Institute by Mario Kölling and Ignacio Molina, myself, to the next Austrian presidency of the Council, in particular on the multi-annual financial framework. And we only have to wish good luck to the Austrian presidency next semester. And thank you very much for your attention. Thank you, Mario.
Thank you.